Hello and welcome to Leading Dragons. And today we have a guest all the way, a very special guest all the way from Canada. Hi, Reggie.
What's up, Deb?
Good to have you. Good to have
Thanks
you.
for having me.
And especially you as a true master in podcast and hosting. I am extremely honored that you've accepted this invitation.
Well, I'm honored to come on this amazing show. Can't wait to have this conversation.
Okay, so let's get started. So Reggie, a tiny bit about leading dragons. And a leading dragon is a courageous leader who steps into their power and creates the change because their mission is bigger than their fear. And so I created this podcast series since in September last year, and it's really to create this platform to enable fearless leaders like yourself to share their story, to share their heart space, in order to encourage and accompany others to step into their power, into their authenticity, and to lead fearlessly despite the adversity around them. So
I
welcome.
love I love that. Love that.
Thank you.
You are creating an environment for leaders to really come and step into their purpose, dispel any sort of fears, and continue to be fierce and lead. That's awesome. I like it.
Yeah, thank you. And why? Because for me, my number one value is growth. And you can't really grow if you watch all the TEDx talks, you read all the books, you listen to all the those around leadership and those how do you say thought leaders, right, around leadership and all that. At the end of the day, it's about motion. So the difference in this podcast compared to most is it's more of a call to action, okay? Because it's with motion that we can experiment, that we can step out right outside our comfort zones into our power. And it's like it's only through experimentation that we can truly grow and become better versions of ourselves. So, on that note, Reggie, over to you. You're sitting in Canada. Who are you and what brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, so where am I? I am in Toronto, Canada. So this is the big city. I'm just outside of it. But yeah, a little bit about me. I have a 9 to 5. I work at a company called 360 Insights, and I'm the director of marketing. I have 15 years of experience in marketing and love it. And I studied that in school as well. But I would say most recently, Deb, I would say within the last 2 years now, I've finally like really stepped into my purpose and my mission, which I'm super happy about. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm doing a number of things. You see how I started off with the 9 to 5? Well, I'm not just the 9 to 5. A lot of people get kind of hung up the titles and whatnot, but I figured, I'm like the Swiss Army knife because there's so many dimensions, so many different levels in terms of the things that I'm doing. One in particular is that you called it off the top. I'm hosting a live show, actually a series of live shows, not even just one. So the first one is called Discover Your Other Self. That's where I provide a platform for people to actually express and inspire others. It's about storytelling. It's not just about the fluffy stuff, the surface level stuff. I want to go deep and really figure out, okay, well, how did you do it? Meaning, how many times did you fall on your face? And
Mm.
with all those hardships, how did you come out of it? How did you overcome? And I created this platform back in April of last year. And I always say in the height of in the eye of the storm, which was the pandemic, and it was a divine calling at the time. And in March, I was coming down from my morning routines, and I got a whisper, and I'm a very spiritual person, and it was from God saying, connect with people. And I was just like, okay, how do I do this? And I just kind of figured things out. I went through the motions. It's like as soon as you get that calling and you start to take action, the universe just opens up to you and things start to go into motion and fall into place.
So, Reggie, sorry, just pause. So you said that in March you had this calling from God. So how was that manifested?
It's manifested in a huge way, by taking the necessary steps. Whatever necessary is, you just take the steps. I started off on Zoom, hosted just like a chat. I said, if there's only one person that shows up, that's fine. But I started to invite different people. 28 people showed up the first time. Eventually, 70 people showed up on Zoom another time. I was like, oh, wow, like there's something here. And then the manifestation started to grow by expanding into the LinkedIn community, by getting LinkedIn Live. And then now it went from 70 to over 1,000 people tuning in at different times watching the show. So that's a manifestation in itself, right? I'm also hosting a show called Cooking with Class, which you were on yesterday. And that's a unique experience combining music, cooking, where a DJ cooks and plays music at the same time. And I just come in and I add the conversation piece to it. And we talk about life. Then there's another show called the Virtual Book Club. It's once a month. And this is a platform where I give people, like authors, the opportunity to showcase their masterpieces, promote them. It's about servicing and promoting others because, hey, I'm also writing a book, so I want to learn from these authors. So this is who I am right now. Oh, one more thing. See, I'm all over the place. One more, because I want to get you to talk. I don't want to be the only one talking because I'm talking a lot. Sorry. I facilitate workshops at colleges and universities. And this is where I give students the tools that they need to succeed post graduation. It's telling students that are not, what's not in an average textbook, like how to deal with a bad boss, how to network effectively, how to deal with politics, how to get promoted, all that stuff.
All the crucial stuff that they never teach you at school, right? Or at university.
Correct.
So, Reggie,
Yes.
you are a slightly busy man, slightly, just a little bit. You have a 9 to 5, plus you host three shows on a regular basis. But the Cooking with Class, I mean, I went in on it yesterday, and it's such a fabulous way to finish the weekend. It's my Sunday evening, and just that DJ who's like, mixing his decks, and then he's mixing his food over here, and then he goes back to his decks. It's fabulous. So it's really wonderful. So Reggie, I mean, like you're busy, and if you were to put it into a nutshell, what is your mission?
My mission is to help people be unapologetic about who they are, so that they could put their true selves on display for everybody to see. That's my mission.
Sorry,
And
there
I'm
was
doing
a little
that
bit of a
through
blip
these
on my
various
Wi-Fi.
channels.
Sorry, Reggie. There was a little blip on my end. So your
Okay.
mission is to encourage. I'm just going to repeat back to you. Tell me if I've got it right. So your mission is to enable and accompany people to be unapologetically themselves, and to show it to the world. Bang.
Bingo.
Right.
Nailed it.
And this is who you are as a leading dragon.
Yes. It all.
Yeah. And so what would the world look like if if your mission was accomplished and everybody was unapologetically themselves?
I think we achieve a lot more harmony. I think if people are to be their authentic, and I don't even like using that word authentic, but if they're just to be just themselves, just be real, I find that it will remove a lot of barriers. People will be a lot more happier. They will be, operating at a high vibrational type of frequency, which will then create that harmony. And imagine that if like attracts like with that law of attraction, think about how much more we could do as a society in terms of being innovative and evolving our society, carrying it forward, right? We're talking about transcending things like in light speed versus the way that we do it today.
Mm. And let's just talk for a minute about how we do things today. What is according? I mean, it's such a beautiful mission, Reggie, and I mean that's why you're on my show, right? This is why we connected in the first place, because our missions are overlap a lot, and about just, yeah, like you say, stepping into our truth and just being, but owning it as well. And that is that's, I guess that's another layer to it. So it's all very good and well to be like, oh well, I'm just being authentic, so I want to speak to you like this, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. I mean, that's one thing, but actually owning it and being responsible and doing it for the greater good, that's like an additional responsibility. um so going back to the your mission, Reggie, like what do you, I mean, what is to you, like what are the major blocks that are preventing people from doing just that?
Cool. These major blocks, and this is a great, really good question. I'm going to pretty much say what my major blocks were, because listen, I was the same way. I was not 100% myself before. It took me a while to get here. So how I could resonate and relate to, I would say, the masses, is number one, for sure, fear. A lot of us, are held back by fear and the limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves, because that fear comes in many forms, right? Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of just losing oneself, in fear of just other people's perceptions.
Mm,
When we put the weight of other people's opinions and we let that hinder our ability to really come out to who we truly are and be unapologetic for who we are, we're just not only doing ourselves a disservice, but we're also doing this world a disservice, because there's so many ideas that we all have in our minds, but we allow the fear to hold ourselves back and not explore those opportunities. Right. So that's one. I would also say that blockages come from the way that we've been programmed through society, this circle of influence, right? Through our family, our friends, our workplace. If I think about who I used to be, I used to work in, large corporate company. If I think about LinkedIn, for example, LinkedIn right now is like my sandbox. It's like my playground. Before it wasn't. Like I had to be buttoned down. The only thing that I would really post was an article that I would find, and I would share it, and it would probably be on digital transformation.
and that was wild, right?
Yeah, woo, right? But that was because I had to fall in line. If I stepped outside of that, it's like, oh, like, what's he doing?
Yeah.
This is not of our corporate structure.
Yeah.
But that wasn't me. Now I'm putting everything on display. So those are the factors.
Yeah. So make two main blocks. So fear and programming, programmed by institutions, school, family,
Family, yeah.
we live in. And yeah, and so let's move into, you mentioned the word corporate, and so I help corporate leaders, organizational leaders, because the way that the majority still today, corporations and organizations are being run is shocking, quite frankly. There's so much dysfunction, and it's like nothing is, the dial has barely moved, a millimeter in the last 20 years. And so the question is, what is, how do you feel, how do you see organizations being run today?
Scattered. What I mean by that is there's a lot of contradiction between what the corporate values are
Mm,
And corporate values are usually demonstrated through their value proposition that the marketplace sees. But everybody has dirty laundry, right? So when you look within,
Mm-hmm.
you really see what's under the hood in terms of dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a lot of leaders that try to preach one thing, but they do it next,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then that creates that ripple effect because leaders at the top have a huge influence on the layers below them. So that's that ripple slash domino effect that impacts the working level, as we would say in corporate, right? So when I talked to you about like harmony before, imagine people being real, being authentic. I hate that word, but just being real and being consistent. Now, the adverse to what I just said before, which is the stumbling blocks to dysfunction, this is the adverse effect. Let's be consistent. Let's live in harmony. Let's live at a high vibe mentality. Let's be mindful. And even prior to starting this conversation with you, Deb, we talked about being human first. Let's talk about that human aspect and let's create that connection internally so that we could create bigger impact externally.
Yeah. So you said a word that kind of triggered me, which is like, let's be consistent. And you're saying about like other corporate values and how they're shown up there, in the window to be
Yeah.
the go-to employer, on the market in the industry, just to look good. And like you said, very acutely, which was, yeah, and what's under the hood? When you put the hood back, it's like, whoa, actually, you're not the person who I thought you were. You're not the company that I thought you were. But you won't know anything until after you've been hired, after you've been
Correct.
employed, right? So if I was to go, if I was the employer and I'm like, okay, so Reggie, so you are candidate for this job, and we'd like to see this and creativity and that and initiative on your behalf, and we want to see, all of these sort of things, and then you're hired because you're totally shining in the interview, and then once you get in under the hood, we'll do everything but allow you to shine.
Yes, 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 yes. Because they like to put you in this box. And I always say this, I hate the box. I hate it. I've been in the box for like over 10 years.
How did you get out of that box?
Great question. Um, which reminds me, you said trigger. You just triggered me on the third thing that holds us back, which I forgot to mention.
Okay.
Connection with spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Connection with spirit intertwines the intuition, our ability to tap in and listen to the whispers of, I call it God, or you call it the universe or the source. So how did I come out that box? I was divinely pushed out of the box.
You were extracted.
Oh.
Or you were ejected.
Was that?
Were you extracted or were you ejected?
Oh, ejected, like holding on, blasting off, like ejected. But ejected to a point where I didn't have a parachute while I was in the air. I fell flat on my face.
Yeah, that's how it normally goes.
Yeah. So that 12 years in telecom, I remember leaving one of the major corporations in telco to go work for the competition. I did it in a manner that wasn't in their best interest or in good taste, and it definitely was a learning lesson for me. But I had to do what I had to do, and as a result of that action, they actually took action on their end to interfere with my employment with the competitor, which left me unemployed for the first time ever in life. Now you have to understand my mindset at the time was, okay, I got to stay in this industry. This is all I know, 12 years. I'm going to climb the corporate ladder, right? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to strive to get that director role because that's society's telling me everything is based on titles. But to what we said earlier, you're still in this box. So when I was ejected flat on my face, unemployed for the first time, and I even tried to get back into the industry in different ways, but God was just like, no, get out of there. I got something better for you. And it was during that hardship where I discovered all these different talents, all these facets to who I am. And I found myself. I found my other self. And that's the reason why I title my show that way, Discover Your Other Self. Because I was able to create. I created like 2 technical requirements documents for a web platform. I finally created my own website. I'm like, I never knew how to create a website. And then I created that program to target the universities and the colleges, right? And I developed a podcast, developed a live show. All these things that I'm doing now, I wasn't doing before because I was in this box. So how did I come out of it? Again, ejected, right? But sometimes for other people, it's by choice. We all can make that choice. I just learned the hard way because I'm hard-headed. What can I say?
Aren't we all? To some degree. So, wow, so that was 2 years ago that you left the corporate box. You left the box. You removed all the labels, and then you thought, okay, so I'm going to find my own definition of success in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So you started you just went into a whole new realm, and yeah.
No, and even like, so that corporate space was that large organization. And now I'm in like a mid-sized company, but the mid-sized company is very, very entrepreneurial. Well, the leader, the owner of the company, he's an entrepreneur himself, but he encourages people to come as they are, be who you want to be. So that's why I'm still able to do what I'm outside of the box, but operating in a manner that satisfies that company, but also I'm also being fulfilled externally by all the projects that I'm doing.
So let's talk about this for a minute, because there is let's go back into the corporate world, because there are these huge infrastructures that are still in place. There are these huge cultures that are just so, like, just the whole management and leadership styles that are really collapsing and becoming more and more obsolete. And particularly since the breakout of the pandemic in March last year, people have gained a lot of perspective around, is this really a place where I want to be? Is this really a place where I want to be spending 40, 60, hopefully not 80 hours a week, investing all that time every week, going to that place and spending time with these people. And so there are a few companies that are starting to create inside their organizations these micro enterprises. So I think if we were to go back to this idea of encouraging everybody to be an entrepreneur inside the organization, what leadership do you believe needs to be rolled out?
It's a clear one. What I mean by that is, in leadership, there's a lot of individuals that are insecure. A lot of people are scared of who their people truly are. Let me explain further. If you have ambitions to do more than what your job description says, you are pretty much a threat, or sometimes become a threat to your boss. Because if you're super creative and you're able to come up with a plethora of different ideas and you're able to bring that to the table, and your boss is like, oh, this person they have some awesome ideas. I'm scared that they may outshine me, right? Which then puts limitations on you, because they'll form a box around you to say, hey, like, let's contain this. We know you're a high performer, but I need to maintain my level.
Mhm.
So that's what happens a lot of times, I would say, in the corporate setting.
And that's what you're describing right there is ego.
Oh yeah.
So that's ego that's in the way. So until we all begin shedding some of the ego and looking beyond our immediate selves and looking at the collective and the collective good and the collective purpose of the organization, and really have the interests of, the greater good. Until then surely entrepreneurship is never really going to be taking off inside organizations.
Correct. Because that, like, I like how you just summed it up, but the ego, it just gets in our way. Remember, again, it all comes back to the overarching theme of creating harmony is by being your true self, your real self. Now, across the organization, everybody's trying to, it's like a dog eat dog world where everyone's trying to outshine everybody. But here's what I always say, and who am I to say it? Sometimes I got crazy thoughts. I don't get hung up on what the other person's doing. I'm working with blinders on, right? If somebody brings an idea to the table, good for them. If they want to be vocal, good for them. At the end of the day, my name, or not even Sarah or Jim's name, is on the building. That's the company I work for.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say Reggie Waterman Inc. So why am I being so hell bent on and letting my ego get in the way of, because somebody else wants to bring an idea, somebody else wants to shine, somebody else wants to be progressive.
So this is interesting, because this goes back to, I guess I mean, I don't know, is it human instinct to the need and the greed around power?
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about, particularly, well, politicians, but you have politicians inside organizations who are going around, trying to, claim as much of their power rather than empowering others. And hence the term servant leadership comes to mind. So it's such a huge shift, isn't it, in the way that we go about, as leaders, leaders in our lives, leading our own lives first, never mind other people's. Is like, well, what do we want to do? Do we want to hold on to that power, hold on really tightly, and keep all the ego and keep the greed and the control and all that? Or actually, would we be sleeping better and performing better and happier together if we actually started releasing that control? Because by empowering others, we're also empowering ourselves.
You summed it up very well. Service ability. When you could service other people, that's when we all win. It's secular, right? It's circular, right? It's a cycle.
Mhm.
I help you, you might help somebody else, that helps somebody else, and we keep that ripple and domino effect going. What's interesting, when you talked about the pandemic that started in March last year, when you talk to these individual leaders on a one way, on a one off, one on one, yes, the ego is still present, but you match the ego with the external environment that is happening with the pandemic. And like you said, people are still trying to figure out, what do they want to do with their life? What do they want to do with their career? Let alone, not even just the career, what do they want to do at home? Because some people are in situations, married or whatever, and they're like, I don't know if I want to be with this person anymore.
Mm.
So there's a lot of discovery going on, right? But when you talk to those leaders and you tell them the stuff that you're doing, they're like, you know what? I've always wanted to do XYZ. I always wanted to do this and that. That's the fascinating part, because that's the true human. As much power as they want to demonstrate, or the greed that is on display, but it's not on display, because if you're intuitive enough, you can kind of see through it like a window, and you could recognize it. A lot of people have their blinders on because they just don't want to recognize it at all. But I do a RoboCop scan everywhere I go, and I could tell who's in their ego, who's genuine, who's not genuine, and I filter all day, Deb. It's like this, like that's the way my mind works.
Mm.
But if they could get past the ego, get more into the service, to your point, that's when we all win.
So Reggie, your mission is bigger than you. That's why you are where you are today. And you're definitely a leading dragon because you have stepped and are still stepping into your higher power, into your superpower. Have you, I'm sure you do actually, so I won't ask the question. Would you like to share with us a story where your fear was staring at you in the face? Fear with a capital F, or maybe even with a capital F, a capital E, a capital A, and a capital R, and looking at you, and you look back at it and you thought, you know what, I'm going to harness you and I'm going to walk with you and keep going.
Yep. It was when I hit rock bottom, my personal rock bottom. And I always say that 2019 was my version of COVID-19. And I feel that I was being set up for everything that is happening now. Facing that fear of, not having a job. I have two kids. They don't live with me, but I still have to pay, provide child support.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even want to tell them, which I still to this day, they don't even know that I was unemployed during that 6-month span. But the fear of not being able to provide, not being able to satisfy my obligations from a financial perspective, not being able to get the same salary that I was getting when I took on or try to take on that other opportunity. So meaning I would probably have to settle, which I didn't want. That was a huge fear of mine. I didn't want to settle. How did I overcome? Well, it was building a strong mindset. I had some influence around me in terms of my mom. She was very spiritually grounded, gave me Bible verses from time to time. I would listen to motivational speeches on YouTube from Les Brown or Joel Osteen. But I actually went to a Tony Robbins event when I was unemployed too. I shouldn't have gone, even like, when I say shouldn't have gone, at the time I thought I shouldn't have gone because I was not receiving any salary. So why are you spending all this money to go? But these cycles gave me the tools that I needed to fight through. I remember I would take cold showers and I would do daily affirmations and I would just build up my vibration in order to push through. The daily affirmations was a means to reprogram and hijack my mind to not focus on the fact that I don't have a job, but to focus on the job that I want. Who do I want to be going forward? This is the time to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. And then you translate that into what today is like with the pandemic. It was kind of like that, where you're somewhat in isolation, you're on lockdown, you have the time now to figure out who you want to be, because this is only temporary. And just like that fear that I had before, that was only temporary too. So what are you going to do when you come out on the other side?
So you went out and sought resources. Okay, so you went to see, Tony Robbins. You had your mother, who was one of your spiritual guides, and you had this other resources that were your support, and that sort of replenished your own resourcefulness. And then, how did the fear? How do you see the fear? Did it sort of dissipate quite quickly, or how did you do to walk with it?
Gradually over time, it was about doing the work. I had to do the work of the daily affirmations, the I am statements, the that was the programming I need to dispel and shut down that voice of the saboteur, because we like to sabotage ourselves by saying, you can't do this. You crazy?
Yeah.
Who's gonna listen to you? No one's gonna listen to you. You're gonna fail. I remember when I was doing the workshops for the first time with University of Toronto. In preparation for that, I would rehearse my presentation, but during the rehearsal, it's like, you can't do this. You know you're gonna fail. You're gonna stutter. You're gonna forget your lines. You're gonna forget this. You're gonna forget that. But somebody taught me, when you have those voices in your mind, it just means that you're that much closer to breaking through to your next level. So for all your audience out there, because we all go through this, if that voice in your mind is telling you you can't do it, you are about to take yourself to the next level, and it's going to keep on happening as you grow.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to build that muscle to help break through.
Breaking through all that conditioning, isn't it? And
Oh yeah.
deprogramming yourself, and just yeah.
Think about the years of reprogramming. However old you are, work backwards. You know, if you're 30 years old, think about 30 years of programming that you have. You can't, you know, turn a switch and flip that in overnight. It's going to take years, right? You're 50, same thing, work back. It's going to take years. It won't take another 50 years, but I'm just saying it's going to take time.
So I'm working inside a corporation. This is hypothetical too. I've left the corporate world since, but I'm working in an organization, and I know that I cannot just sit on my laurels and wait for change to happen from upstairs. Okay. And so, what can I do to start making the changes that I would like to see, inside work? Because I do love my work colleagues. I'm very engaged in in the work that I do, but I can see that there is toxicity. I can see that we are definitely not high performing, and there's so much more potential. What are the questions that I can start asking myself to start stepping into my power and moving through the millions of fears that are just sabotaging away at my, inside my head and preventing me from moving?
I love this question because it's I actually developed a framework. It's called the time matrix. So this helped me based on your scenario. This is what I would do. So if I'm in an organization, maybe I'm not super fulfilled right now, as opposed to just waiting for direction from the top to move me up the ranks, you got to be able to create opportunities for yourself. Number one, that's first and foremost. But this framework that I developed is called the time matrix.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 4 boxes, line drawn from the top down to the bottom, line drawn from the left to the right. Top left hand corner, I have what I don't want. That's what I write at the top as a label. And then on the top right hand corner, I say what I do want. And this represents what I want in my life or my career. Bottom left hand corner, I'm writing down what my superpower is, which are your unique gifts and talents. Bottom right hand corner, I'm writing down this time next year. So if I go back, top left hand corner, what I don't want in my life or my career, that's the easy part. The reason why you want to start with that is because you just want to get that out the way. You don't even want to focus on things that you don't want. It could be, I don't want to work for a bad boss. I don't want to work for an organization that doesn't give me an opportunity to make impact, right? Or I don't want to work for a company that doesn't align with my values. Get that out the way. Focus on the things that you do want. So if it's about creating opportunities for yourself, what are those opportunities that you want to take advantage of? Maybe you want to be promoted to a specific position, right? Maybe you want to do something outside of your organization that brings you greater fulfillment, right? But what are you passionate about? What gets you excited? List that in that box. Bottom left hand corner, all the traits, all the unique gifts that you have. Because Steve Harvey, I like his analogy when he talks about the fingerprint, and nobody has the same fingerprint.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're all different, we're all unique. But leverage those superpowers and those unique talents as strengths to put you on your path to achieve what you want. That this time next year represents the visualization of you stepping into that mission, stepping into your purpose, stepping into what you want to achieve. Because it also takes into account that at this point in time, which I forgot to mention, the reason why I call it the time matrix, it's actually an acronym. It's not really just time. It means this is me. If I'm trying to help people understand who they actually are, this whole framework is a representation of that person. This is
Oh, I
me.
love it. This is me.
Mm-hmm. So once you visualize what you want next year, you take your passions, what excites you from what you want, you take your superpowers, you combine it to really realize and step into achieving those goals. That's how you manifest it. So I would start with that framework based on your original scenario.
So, and that is, so this goes back to the focus, all your focus. Where do you want to focus your energy on? And that's why all the people are moaning. I mean, I'm sure you, like me, we've got a ton of friends year after year. You feel like you're having like, there's like a time warp because you've had the same conversation. You've been hearing them like moan about the same things last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Same shitty boss or whatever it is, or they're just like, incompetent team members or whatever it is. And so actually, it's not even really about them. It's about ourselves. So your time framework is actually an invitation to go, you know what, just let go what, everything that's beyond your circle of influence, forget about it. There's nothing you can do about it anyway. So you might as well just start with yourself. And getting consistent
Bingo.
with how we spend our time, who we spend our time with, what we're actually doing, and actually really, harnessing that and like you said very beautifully, manifesting it.
You got it. It's like you've done this already.
Yeah, well, it's not exactly Greek to me. Cool. Oh well, look, honestly, it was Reggie, super pleasure. I mean, we could keep going. Just before we wrap up, what is one thing you'd like to leave our dragon listeners with today?
Here's the message two messages. It's funny, last week I don't know why, the thoughts just came to my mind about what's the next evolution of Reggie. Like, if I'm trying to help people be their real selves or be unapologetic of who they are, part of who you are is an evolution. You're constantly reinventing yourself. The next level in terms of a growth mindset that I'm at right now is to develop an illusionist mindset. An illusionist mindset is one where you create your own reality, you create your own opportunities, and you just you visualize it to a point where whatever's happening externally, and we could use the pandemic again, whatever's happening externally, do not let it impact your internal. You be the director of your own movie, go after whatever you want. That's one. Another thing that I want to leave is I want to encourage other people to start telling their stories. So telling your story in a way, and I'm working on a campaign right now, you know this too, it's called Defining Moments, where I'm actually launching it tomorrow, but it's going to be a running cycle. It's going to be a running cycle of like stories that I put on display where people are going to talk about a defining moment that changed the course of their life. Because if we tell our stories and we don't hoard them, what happens is that it will start to create impact because it will resonate with somebody that is going through that something, similar situation, and it will get them to talk as well. So I'm trying to help encourage other people to do that for the purpose of making impact.
Reggie, you're magic. Keep stepping into your power. You're definitely a leading dragon. It was great to have you on the show. We need more people like you um, to change the way things have been run for so long, and just to bring humanity back to the center of everything that we do. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
It was lovely to have
No
you.
worries.
We'll do
No,
this.
thank you for having me. This is awesome. This is a great conversation.
It was great. And until next time, have a good day.
Thanks, you too.